This congressional investigation has carried on for almost a year now. It's been more than a year since Brian Terry was murdered, and still nobody's been held accountable inside the Justice Department. When can the American people expect somebody or more than one person to be held accountable in there?
Well, as you know, on February 2nd, the Attorney General will come before our committee, and this will be the first time that he's come before our committee to answer the questions, not just about what he knew and when he knew it, but what he's done other than obstruct, cover up, since he began to know about this some many months ago. It's been a challenge. The Judiciary Committee has multiple issues with the Attorney General. We have one issue, the issue of breaking the law in order to enforce the law.
He's appeared before Congress a few times on this, twice before the House Judiciary, once before Senate Judiciary, but what's going to be different about your hearing, because he's never appeared before the Oversight Committee before?
Well, the Oversight Committee is investigating the Department of Justice, which is very different than his appearances before judiciary committees in which they're asking how things are going at Justice. What we've discovered in our investigations is a pattern of cover-up, of delay. Ultimately, Congress was given false information, and now we've had people both resign and take the fifth as we try to get to the basic elements of why and how was Congress lied to.
Now, also, there's more than 100 of your colleagues in the House, many of them on the Oversight Committee, a couple in the Senate, some governors, every Republican presidential candidate have expressed that they don't trust Attorney General Eric Holder anymore, and many of them want him to resign or President Obama to fire him. Do you agree and agree with them and think it's time for Holder to resign?
Well, I've said publicly, if it were my decision, I don't have sufficient confidence in his ability to lead that organization. So that's a decision for the president. I think the president should make that decision.
They've refused to comply with parts of your subpoenas, also refused to provide witnesses, some witnesses, most recently Cunningham has decided he's going to plead the fifth. Are contempt of Congress proceedings on the way? Is that something that's on the horizon?
We have a process, and we respect that process. The administration can disagree on whether something's covered by an executive privilege, and we'll go through the process of showing it's not. We've been going through that process. We're quite convinced that everything within our subpoena are valid and that they need to be delivered.
What makes this scandal different than from the others, and is the administration hoping it goes away?
Well, the administration's been trying to make it go away, first by denying it, then by covering it up, and then by delaying. What makes this one different is the cover-up. Very much like Iran-Contra and other scandals of the past, the initial action, illegal, wrong, foolish, dangerous, and ultimately deadly, was bad enough. But the cover-up, the denial, giving Congress a letter flat saying we don't let guns walk, when there was a program in which the emails show they called it gun walking, they knew it was gun walking, and ultimately Americans and Mexican citizens have paid with their lives.
Now, Holder finally apologized to Brian Terry's family after a very, very long time of him not doing so. The president did, Janet Napolitano did, but he only did after Senator Cornyn pressured him to do so. And then he, of course, leaked the letter to Politico before Brian's mother actually read it. But there are also several hundred victims in Mexico, as far as what's publicly known. We don't know their names. We don't know who they are. Do you think the Attorney General has a responsibility to track down those victims' families and apologize to them in the same way that he did to Brian?
Justice has blood on their hands. The Attorney General, as the head of justice, has to explain that to the families of survivors. And yes, he should find a way to make it very clear to our neighbors to the south, at least to the government and at least publicly, that there needs to be deep regret for what happened, and there needs to be assurances that it can never happen again. We can't bring these people back to life, but at least the kind of condolence that eventually came to Mrs. Terry is a minimum that people on the south of the border are demanding, and they have a right to.
Where do you see this going? Where do you see it ending? Does it end this year? Does it continue past this year?
This scandal can end as quickly as the Justice Department cooperates. We need to get the full facts. We need to stop having people be systematically one after another scapegoats and simply say, hold people accountable. As you know, Lanny Brewer and others high in the administration have never answered the question of, since they knew, why are they not being held accountable? Eric Holder said he didn't know. Then he said he didn't know quite as far back. But he's never said where the accountability is in his office, in his surrounding office. The people that prepared those memos that he didn't read, are they accountable, or is it just acceptable to have the truth told to the Attorney General, but if he doesn't read it, it won't count?
With a Justice Department official pleading the Fifth Amendment, what kind of message does that send? I mean, it's a highly trained lawyer pleading the Fifth Amendment.
This is a 30-year professional who obviously, on advice of counsel, realizes that he's been part of a cover-up, he's been part of a crime. People have a right to take the Fifth, but it always indicates something pretty significant. In this case, it shows us that the cover-up is now understood to be criminal. It shows us that the investigation we've been doing of justice is right, and it shows us that others are going to have to be held accountable for it, not just Patrick Cunningham.
In terms of evidence that that there was there are allegations surfacing that there was another agent who was killed with fast and furious weapons, Jaime Zapata from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Has that been confirmed?
We may never know if Jaime Zapata was murdered with fast and furious weapons, but what we do know is enough weapons were down there that inevitably more will die, both Americans and Mexicans, and that this program is the kind of program that will continue unless we get a change in how justice views things, and certainly a change in how political appointees are viewing it.